minister has reported her domestic workers for robbing her between the months of July and October 2022 of $1 million, 300,000 euros, and untold amounts of cedis. According to the charge sheet, this money was then distributed to other people, and they have all been charged and are being tried in court as we speak. But this has raised other issues because, of course, Madam Cecilia Dapaah, who, by the way, I must say, is a lovely person. Every time I've met her, found her to be completely enchanting, lovely, courteous person. It has raised questions about the propriety or otherwise of having so much money in your house. Well, this is how she's responded. She's resigned from the position of minister. The president has accepted her resignation and said that he is certain that she'll be exonerated in these matters. An investigation has not yet been started by any government institution or any mandated institution. So let's look at this from several angles. We can look at the legal implications. What are the laws that could have been broken here? What are the questions we should be asking? We can also look at what it means for our fight against corruption. Did we go or did we come? We can also look at the political implications. How is government handling this? This is something that happened last year. How has government handled the fallout? Could they have done better, or have they done the right thing? Let's start from there. Professor Ransford Gyampo joins us. He's a professor of political science at the University of Ghana. Prof, good morning to you.
Morning.
We'll also later be speaking to Mary Addah, who is acting executive director of the GII, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Samson Lardy Anyenini, who of course is a private legal practitioner. He's also the host of Newsfile here on Joy. But Prof Gyampo, we're starting with you because naturally one of the big implications here is the political one. I wonder how you assess this government and the ruling party's handling of this emerging story.
Well, as you rightly indicated, this is a matter that we are told occurred last year. We do not know whether officially the government and the ruling party were brought into the picture or have been in the know since then, and they haven't done anything about it. The story just broke, I think, just last week. And so, to give the benefit of the doubt, you want to assume that the ruling party may not have been aware, the government may also not be in the know until the story broke, was brought to us by you guys in the media. And so, in terms of handling the matter, I think the woman has resigned and the resignation has been accepted. I think so be it. I just didn't want the president. The president could have simply gone on to accept the resignation without saying that he hopes that she is going to be exonerated. I mean, it shouldn't come from the president because he's gradually having a certain track record. People were referring to him as a clearinghouse and all that. So
yeah, but Prof, what's wrong with the president? Prof, what's wrong with the president saying that he expects her to be exonerated?
No. The woman has not even appeared before any investigative body yet, and so I think that such expectations should be kept in the head and in the mind. The president has a penchant for passing certain judgments of people who are to be appearing before committees and investigative bodies in a manner that tend to weaken the feel of independence on the part or by those who would have to exercise a certain judgment. And I think that is becoming one too many. And so if the woman has resigned, you should just go ahead, and if you think in your wisdom you have to accept the resignation, you should stop at that without talking about your expectations, because otherwise then it creates an impression as if you are setting a certain tone for whatever investigations that may go on. I think that one is not the best.
Okay. Let me just get your view on this. Would it have been better for the president to, say, relieve her of her position, or the resignation is best?
Well, I think that you have the option of resigning or being pushed out. And if the woman chose the route of resigning on her own volition, I think it is good and it is commendable. I applaud the resignation and also the letter that communicated the resignation. I applaud it, and I think it is a huge political capital that the ruling party could even exploit to its own advantage. I'm saying so because everybody knows that in Ghana we don't resign unless you are pushed, and even sometimes politicians would not force you out, and individuals would also not have the culture, or we don't have the culture of resigning when things have gone wrong. And so, to the extent that the woman herself said that, but she controverted some of the issues and raised issues with the amount of money that is being peddled out there, saying that, look, that is not the amount of money we disclosed to the police. But be that as it may, we do not want this matter to come and worry the political party and its electoral fortunes. And so we will resign and then be prepared to appear before whatever committee that will be investigating. And she gave a promise and assurance that she's prepared to cooperate. And for me, it's a huge political capital that others can cash in the ruling party to say that gradually we have people among them who would, on their own volition, resign when they think that something didn't go on well, or when they think that something, when discussed extensively, would also affect the party, and they should be applauding that. But typical of this particular regime and its communicators, they do not even know how to tout what is good about them, and I'm not going to be doing that for them.
Prof, so far, as you would normally have seen in the emergence of a scandal involving a member of the government, you would normally have seen a robust defense being mounted by communicators on all platforms, including social media. They would be singing from the same hymn sheet, providing some sort of extenuating circumstance or explanation for what people don't understand. In this case, we haven't seen much of that, except for one government communicator on UTV who suggested that perhaps the money was funeral donations being kept in her home. How do you assess the communication, the political communication around this scandal?
But whoever said the money was a funeral donation clearly misspoke, and he made a very unintelligent, comment, and he sought to insult the intelligence of Ghanaians, and I'm sure that Ghanaians have seen through that kind of communication. And generally, I'm not surprised if people are not talking. You see, when public servants and party officials in power are found to be keeping such huge monies in their homes when the masses are living in poverty and economic miserization, it becomes a source of concern to all, regardless of their political divide. People within the party, people outside the party who are all hungry, people in government and people outside government who are all hungry. Would want to raise concerns. And so sometimes the concerns that those people in government will raise will simply be manifested in the fact that they will not even comment or speak about some of these things at all. And if you see what happened to Dr. Obed Asama when he was alleged to have also kept huge sums of money under his bed or something, people outside government complain, and people in government also, many of them didn't speak, and those who spoke actually were criticizing that move. And so I am not surprised. I mean, how are you going to be defending this? Look, there is no law. I don't know about any law that bans people from keeping their monies in their homes. And if you sent your money to Data Bank or EDC or EcoBank and got paid matched to market value of your savings, or you are given a haircut, then you will think twice in determining where you want to save your money. Some people, because of that, want to save their monies in their homes at the risk of being the money is being stolen. But if you are a public servant, and even if you're a public servant, I mean, it is within your legitimate right to save whatever money or keep whatever money you have in your home. But if it is found that, look, knowing your salary and knowing the job that you do, if it is found that you have such an outrageous amount of money being kept by you in your home, then definitely everybody, every Ghanaian, with his or her salt, will raise concern. And so it is not a big deal. I'm not surprised that communicators are not even speaking to that. And more importantly, the fact that the woman herself, on her own volition, has resigned, sort of throws cold water on whatever discussion that, or whatever debate or defense that would have ensued. Because the culture of resignation in our part of the world, unfortunately, is alien to us. And so when people do it, it silences people.
Yeah, but Prof, the fact that you've resigned doesn't exonerate you from any possible wrongdoing, does it?
No, I mean, the woman herself has said, I'm sure the matter is before courts, and the woman herself has also said that she is prepared to cooperate with any state agency that would want to investigate this matter. And I've not heard the special prosecutor talking publicly about this. When people were sharing bicycles and other things at campaign rallies, immediately we heard the special prosecutor issue a statement that they are going to have them investigated. I'm wondering why, in this particular instance, we haven't heard. I'm not saying they haven't done, but just they have set a certain standard for themselves that they will be doing their work in the public domain by always being heard in the public. So I'm expecting them to come out publicly about this and what they intend doing about that.
The information I'm picking is that they may have. I've picked signals that they may have, started investigations and be communicating.
I'm saying that
shortly.
I'm not saying they are not working. I'm saying that they are choosing to work in the public, and so they should communicate every now and then. If they want to do something, they want people to hear of them doing it, and so that's the standard or yardstick we are using in judging and determining whether they are working or they are not working. And so I'm expecting that it shouldn't be a silent signal that an individual will be picking that they are going to commence investigation, but they should issue a statement letting Ghanaians know that they are also interested in this matter and that they also want to get to the bottom, of the matter.
Right, Prof. There are some who say that sometimes when the scandal involves smaller, relatable amounts of money, the damage
relatable.
Yes, relatable. I'll explain what I mean. The damage is far more than when it involves large, unimaginable sums. So, for example, under the Mahama government, the bus branding scandal did far more to damage the NDC in government than, say, JIDA scandal. And under the Akufo-Addo government, there have been scandals involving large amounts of money from Ijapa to God knows what. But this one, where you have $1 million, a figure that people can imagine, even physically, it has house helps and family members and so forth, relatable circumstances, money stolen from a home. Some suggest that this makes the narrative more powerful and therefore more damaging. How do you assess that?
Well, it certainly would make that the narrative would be damaging if it is sustained in the public domain. But as I indicated, quickly, if you have somebody resigning, then and the person promising to be cooperating with whatever investigative mechanism that will be put in place, it sort of douses the intensity of the narrative that would have characterized, such incidents. Because people will say, "Sasa, I mean, he's resigned." Normally, what would have spurred or would have provoked more the intensity of the narrative would have been that, look, President Akufo-Addo is condoning corruption. Instead of firing her, he's not firing her, and then instead of the woman herself resigning, people will be calling for a resignation and all that. But she has prevented those who would have called for her. She has silenced those who would have called for her resignation, and then she has, per her action, also shielded the president against calls on him to fire, her, and so then these would be taken out or away from the narrative. So then the intensity of the narrative would reduce, given what she has done. But as you rightly indicated, that is not the end of the matter at all. So what, in my view, would bring again back this matter in the public domain and be forcefully interrogated and discussed will be the aftermath of whatever investigation that would go on. And I would urge whoever will be investigating, any institution that will be investigating this, to act swiftly and with dispatch, with a view to ensuring that whatever the truth in the matter is, we are all told, and if there are actions that will have to be taken further, they are taken. It's in the interest of the regime in power to ensure a swift investigation of this, a swift, uninterfered investigation, in this matter, so that we get to a finality, we get to the bottom of it.
Prof, I want to thank you. I know we've taken up pretty much all the time you had to spare this morning. We appreciate it very much. Professor Ransford Gyampo is Professor of Political Science at the University of Ghana. There's a lot more to explore on this topic. Don't you worry. We're going to ask about the legal implications here. We're going to look into the implications on the war on corruption, if indeed that war has any chance of being won.
And I'll repeat it again. Those who are coming to this administration thinking that it's an avenue for making a lot of money are going to be disappointed. They better go to the private sector. That is where people make money, not in government.
All right, listen, this conversation, even if it has, angles that are full of mirth, the truth is it's a very serious matter. A very serious matter. This might be the tip of an iceberg. So if we don't examine what is beneath the surface, we might allow a country that has immense wealth to continue to fall into the doldrums of poverty and neo-colonialism just because a few people are hoarding our wealth in their homes. We can't let that happen. That's why this conversation is important. We're joined now by Samson Lardy Anyenini. He's the host of Newsfile. He's a lawyer, a prominent lawyer. He hates to be described as, but that's what he is. He joins us over the phone. Mary Awelana Addah. I love the full name. Mary Awelana Addah is acting executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. She's a friend of our show. She comes on it quite often, and she's on it this morning. Mary and Samson, good morning to you both.
Morning, Kojo. Good morning, Kojo and Weston.
Good morning.
Wonderful. All right. Now, listen. Then the freshest angle of conversation is the president's response in accepting the resignation of Cecilia Dapaah. And I'd love to get your takes on this. First, from the legal perspective, what it means, for whatever legal process may follow. And then, of course, from the anti-corruption perspective, whether this indeed helps or hinders the fight against corruption. So I'll read the specific sentence from the president's acceptance. Oh, let me read the whole thing. It's just one paragraph. So it says, "Dear Cecilia, I have received your letter dated Saturday, 22nd July 23, resigning from office as Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources and as a member of the government. It is with considerable regret that I accept your resignation, and I applaud your loyalty to the image and standing of the government. The work you undertook during your period in government was excellent and productive, and I thank you for your wholehearted contribution and devotion to the progress of the government and the nation. Now here it is. I am confident, like you, that at the end of the day, your integrity whilst in office will be fully established. I wish you the very best in all your endeavors. Yours sincerely, and it's signed by the President. Samson, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. The expectation here is that an investigation and possibly legal proceedings must ensue from this. The President setting the tone with a statement expecting the exoneration of his former minister. Does that have any impact on what should follow?
Well, could you first of all, the expectation initially was that it would not have been the president accepting a resignation, but would have been the president simply dismissing her or interdicting her, or perhaps do it like the way he did for Anyenini, the former PPA boss. Within reasonable time, you take action, setting matters because of their nature. You act very swiftly, and then you don't stop there. The expectation would have been that he would have interdicted her, or he would have sacked her and then made a referral. Like in the Anyenini matter, he made a referral to the Straj. In a very recent matter, when Professor Frimpong Boateng, had made disclosures on an interview on GTV mentioning that the Jubilee House was neck deep in Galamsey, the president didn't hesitate at all in making a referral to the police. And the OSP Act and its regulations, Operation Regulations 2018, both acknowledge that there can be a referral from a competent authority. And there cannot be any other competent authority in this republic than the presidency. Now, I'll come to that point there quickly about the expectation of exoneration, as she had also stated in her resignation letter. But Kojo, this morning, we do not know how many long hours after the matters became public knowledge, and the presidency would have been seized with it, and the various investigative bodies would have been aware, with the exception of Straj, which cannot initiate an action on this matter unless it has been petitioned or there's been a complaint to it by an identifiable individual complainant on the authority of Richard Anane matter, as the Supreme Court pronounced in 2007 and 8. In respect of the OSP, by its own act and by its regulations, but particularly the Operation Regulations 1-2C, it is allowed to act on its own initiative. Iyoko and the rest of them. I believe very sincerely that the circumstances of this case rendered that state property, the house in which the minister and her husband live in, a crime scene, and ought to have been, if they have not done it. I don't know if they have done it. If they have done it, we are not aware. I saw a Joy News reporter around the premises yesterday also. That place ought to have been cordoned off. There ought to have been searches to confirm if there is extra cash sitting in that place. because the content of the charge sheet and the brief facts accompanying the matter as put in the court is very clear that at the time of the so-called the alleged theft, it had been going on for a long period until the husband allegedly chanced on the house help one day and discovered that money was being stolen. Well, it's the husband who chanced on it. I do not intend to impugn any wrongdoing on the husband, but would the husband have known about these things? Would he himself have had access to the money somehow? And then perhaps right now, even in the court process, you can see the difficulty it will be to prove that the people who have been charged actually stole a particular exact amount. So first of all, that place ought to have been immediately, visited by the authorities and checks done to see if there was extra money to avoid concealment. And the law talks about concealment of tainted money or tainted property. Once there is reasonable suspicion that the property is tainted, the OSP has powers in emergency situations, I think like the EOCO as well, to even proceed without a warrant from the court to go into the place and check and to be sure if they find anything, seize them and then proceed with their investigations. Now, Kujo, number one, what does the president know that we don't know? What does Cecilia Dapaah know that we don't know yet, that she hasn't told us? On the question of her believing that she'll be exonerated, and the president also believing say, what has she told the president? That she hasn't told us, and rather decided or elected to resign. If there were facts that could easily be explained to all of us as to the genuineness of why the money is being kept, and Kojo, by the work I do as a lawyer, I know that even the Kokomlemle area you are not zoned, said to be an expensive, place when it comes to properties. I know that there are properties around that cost in excess of how many millions of dollars. There are properties around even Noifi Cantonment area that are sold for over $1 million. So it can be one transaction cash. But the thing is, there's a lot of curious situations about everything that has happened. So I am asking, if this was so easily explainable, why has she not explained but rather resigned when she knows that she is not guilty of any wrongdoing? What has she told the president? Okay, that the president also believes that she will be exonerated, rather than telling us what the facts are and rejecting her resignation, rather, and telling the world that these are the facts we know. We have heard the joke about, the company that got a contract from her of in excess of how much? $40 million, could have attended her mother's funeral recently and could have donated $2 million to her. Well, it tells you the attitude of the people in office. And the person who said this is actually a serving appointee. Yeah. That person, nothing has been done to them yet, even if they were joking. Okay? Victoria Hammer just had a dream, had an intention. She just expressed it of wanting to make $1 million, making $1 million, not keeping $1 million. You can earn $1 million. Okay? She was sacked. Around the time, if you guys recall, and these days when I'm going to host my show, for example, and issues come up, they are the same issues we are regurgitating. I quickly just do a Google search, and you find what the NPP people were saying at the time, including their own general secretary at the time, how immediately Victoria Hammer should be arrested, her premises should be investigated, and her funds, FIC and all of the other institutions should get on her. Well, suddenly we haven't heard from the NPP itself. when you're even inviting them onto a program for a discussion, because of this matter, they won't show up. So the president's comment and her own comment that she's setting of exoneration, I take it with a bag of salt, with a whole fertilizer bag of salt, because I don't think if she genuinely believes in that and the evidence is available to show the trail of the money, how it was acquired, genuinely, she will be resigning, taking this huge disgrace, and now begin to turn it into, a question of politics. And the president is excited that she's doing something because it will not taint his presidency. I am privy to the resignation of one of his ministers. He didn't say this in the minister's resignation acceptance letter. I'm privy to be part of writing letters for resignation of a minister. When it gets to the presidency, they seek to amend what the person had actually drafted and sent and signed to them. Okay? They change the content, but they don't put there that they believe in the person's, genuineness and integrity, and that the person will be exonerated. So what is going on? This is wrong, and it's not right. But I believe in the institutions, particularly those that all of us are talking about now, that if they were seized with the investigations, the president's comment will not influence the OSP, for example.
Thanks for that, Samson. I'm going to get preliminary thoughts from Mary as well before we proceed. And Mary, on the same issue of the president's response, I mean, Samson has faith in the institutions, as we all should. But, I mean, you are on the operational end of the fight against corruption. What is the reality? Will institutions be influenced by the president's comment or not?
Okay, so not necessarily. Let me say good morning to you, to the team, and then also to Samson on the other end, and to your cherished listeners this morning. From our perspective, we believe that response should have ended with the first sentence. That is it. And we say so because there has been precedents in the past where, like Samson mentioned, the president asked Anyenini Boateng to step aside without any eloquent adjectives being added in there. The fact that particularly the final sentence was added to this, the president's response, goes to support without any equivocation that the lady is going to be exonerated. That is the issue. And for us, we believe the president had different courses of action he could have pursued. If the president had such absolute trust in the former cabinet minister, the sanitation minister, then he could have asked her to remain at post and decided not to bother with some of us and the noise we are making. But for the fact that the president accepted the resignation, that means he wanted the right things to be done. And the right things would be for him to have again done what he did in Anyenini Boateng's instance by referring this matter to a competent investigative body which could have taken up this issue. That is, if they have not already started to have taken up this issue to ensure that we come to some conclusions on the subject. Unfortunately, this has happened. And we all know that there have also been other instances in this country where people have been cleared without investigations happening. We remember the instances of now Minister of Land and Housing, also the two, when they were cleared even before the investigative body state. We remember other instances which we could cite here, that the president came out to declare these persons innocent even before the investigative body state so. And so the implications of declaring that you have absolute confidence that this person's integrity is without question and at the end of the day would be established means that those you have appointed to do their work would then also tread cautiously if you do not take time. We can impugn that. That if you do not take care, some of these investigations would go on forever without any resolution because perhaps they would not want to step on the president's toes. Again, we know for a fact that in some of these instances, there are usually unseen hands behind the scene pulling the strings. And so anything could happen. That perhaps this person is resigning so that the investigative bodies do not take any serious steps in this regard. That is possible. We have seen instances like that happen where cases have gone on and on and on. And we have even heard in some instances where party supporters have come threatening the OSP and other officers of the state that they should be careful. I remember the La Bianca instance where people were heard on radio threatening the OSP that he was going after their own and not fighting corruption. So the implications on the citizens' part is something we should not discount. Again, the fact that the president has such confidence then begins to then put some kind of conjecture in our minds that if the president is so absolute in his confidence, then can we be saying that this money that is missing is something that perhaps people are aware of that we do not know of? Does the president know something that we are not aware of? These are questions we need to be asking ourselves. And if we want to take the fight against corruption seriously, then some of these disappointing statements that are occasioned when there are issues, that the president should be firm and decisive in his actions, does not take seriously. It really, really, really bends the fight against corruption and makes people begin to question the president's utterances or rhetoric when it comes to his pronouncements that he's fighting corruption, is resourcing the institutions of state to do so.
Right. Well, we've got a lot more to discuss with our guests, Samson and Mary, because there are other angles to this situation. We've got to explore, for example, whether or not this is just the tip of an iceberg. You know, what are our legal options if we want to check how widespread this act of stockpiling foreign currency in the homes of government appointees, how widespread it is? If we want to check that, what are our options? Does Parliament have a role to play here? And what should be the posture of government going forward if the people are to have any faith that we intend to fight corruption effectively in this manner? So we'll be hearing more from Samson, Lardy, Anyenini, and Mary Addah in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, now let's get back to our conversation with Samson Lardy Anyenini, who's a host of Newsfile and also a prominent Ghanaian lawyer, and Mary Awelana Addah, acting executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. All right, Samson, I'm coming back to you on this because, 3 days ago when the story broke, or is it 4 days ago now, because it was on Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cecilia Dapaah herself released a statement. Okay, I won't talk about the very strange misspelling of her own name in the the letterhead, but I'm going to go straight to the actual statement. It's again just 3 paragraphs. It says, I refer to publications dated 21/07/2023 suggesting that I own $1 million, 300,000 euros, and millions of cedis which have been stolen from my house. There are noticeable inconsistencies between what is being discussed in the public domain and the thrust of the original complaint on the matter. I am taking steps to examine the origins of the inconsistencies and will provide a detailed response in the coming days. It's signed Cecilia Dapaah, and she has not yet provided the detailed response. Okay, the days are still coming anyway, but she hasn't provided that. She has instead resigned. So in the meantime, Samson, I want us to examine this from our own point of view, from the documentation that we have, the charge sheet, which has been amended a couple of times. She says there are noticeable inconsistencies between what is being discussed in the public domain and the thrust of the original complaint on the matter. Is there any sign whatsoever of what she's referring to here?
Well, when you make a complaint to the police and they are ready to file your charges in the court, normally they will check with you. But there are times that certain errors are made, and then sometimes they even put the matter in court before you discover that they have made some errors and their attention is drawn to it, and then they go back and make a correction and do what we call an amendment. In this particular 10-count charge sheet that was put in the court, it has been amended twice. There was amendment on the 5th of June. The latest amendment is dated the 20th of June. I don't know
as in
why
July?
Any corrections that have to be made are still outstanding. So it has been amended 2 times from the original amendment, from the documentations that we have seen so far. And in the amendment, the first figure, $1 million, never changed in any of the amendments. The second figure, 300,000 euros, never changed. It was, I think, the part of the money said to have been given to the boyfriend. The boyfriend, that appeared to have changed to the current amount that it is. So I don't know what she's talking about, inconsistencies. And the police would have checked with you for something that they have had to amend twice in respect of the figures that are involved. I don't know what else they are talking about, that there's some inconsistency with what they reported to the police and what is on the charge sheet. Well, it's absolutely up to them to determine if they even want to go and do a further amendment and reduce the 1 million to $1 million to $1. That's absolutely up to them. If it's $1 that they are chasing, that has been stolen, that's up to them.
But Samson,
okay?
In the statement, in the first sentence, she says, I refer to publications dated 21st of July, suggesting that I own $1 million, 300,000 euros, and millions of cedis, which have been stolen from my house. Then she goes on about inconsistencies and a detailed response. So it appears that the thing she's challenging is the suggestion that she owns these amounts. The amounts themselves, as you are saying, have not really changed. It is what was received that seems to have been amended. But
who is making any suggestion? No media has made any suggestion, and she knows it. And I know you are just putting it as a question to me because you have also seen the charge sheet. In the entirety of the counts, there's only one count where the husband's clothing, as in kente cloth and suits, are valued at a certain amount for which the husband has been named as the owner of that property. The rest of all the charges, every item, every amount, value of jewelry, clothing, everything else, she's named as the owner of that property. Okay? She's named as the owner of that property. And in fact, if you don't own that property, you can't be making a complaint to the police. Yeah. That's what gives you the capacity in law to challenge anything. She owns the money. That's why it's said in the charge sheet, unless the police prosecution have also made a mistake, an error in that, then she should be blaming the police and not any media that has made any reportage of any suggestion. It's not a suggestion, it's a fact. It's a fact in the courtroom. A fact that has been attended to 2 times to correct. And in all the corrections, these figures have not changed.
Yeah.
So what's the thing there? I don't get it. But like I said to you earlier, we are individual. We have our differences and how we process things. But if I were a minister and this very huge embarrassment is hanging on me, a man's name is everything they have. A good name is better than riches. A man's name is everything you have in your life. If you accuse me that in the manner that we are talking about, and I'm a minister, I will not resign if I have the evidence. To the contrary, I will not contemplate resignation 1 minute. The first thing I would have put out in the public would have been to state categorically that this money is proceeds from X place, and it was brought in at such a time, and it needed to be kept there for a minute before it gets transferred, whatever. But I will not resign. Okay? I will not. Even if I think that some damage has been done on the back of wrong information, and I feel that it embarrasses the government. In such a situation, it must be that I will be compelled to resign against my will, because the truth will be otherwise. In fact, in the prosecution, we say that when you are going to prosecute someone, and there are what is known as exculpating evidence, you must make it available to the accused person. So what is the exculpating evidence that she has, that she wants to talk about, that she doesn't tell us of, and she's beating about the bush the way she's doing, and gets the president to join her that she will be exonerated? But, exonerated of what?
Samson, but you know, she's actually denying the amount. So come to think of it, because I'm now looking at her resignation letter, okay, and here she says, and I quote, "Since yesterday, Friday, July 21, 2023, social and traditional media have been full of stories about a court case involving a theft that took place last year in the home I live in with my husband and daughter. The stories sought to suggest that I own various huge sums of foreign currencies and millions of Ghana cedis which have been stolen from my home. Whereas I can state emphatically that those figures do not represent correctly what my husband and I reported to the police, I am very much aware of the import of such stories around someone in my position."
Yeah.
So now this is a clear denial, is it not?
No, I don't see a denial there. I see a contestation of the figures, perhaps. I don't see a denial. And once again, Kojo, look, her colleague ministers, her colleague appointees, previous and now, okay, she has been in government since 2001 or so. She knows the places that they live, the properties that they have bought. Some of the properties are in excess of $1 million, okay? But those have not become an issue. Once the money can be traced as to how it was earned, what the Constitution talks about in Article 2864 is that if you have made a declaration of your assets, you must make a declaration of your liabilities as well. Okay? Now, if you make a declaration of your assets, and later it is found that you have something, and whatever it is that you have cannot be reasonably attributed to your income. That is money you have genuinely earned as your salary income. Or perhaps we know people survive on multiple jobs. Maybe you have some shops, you are running some other business, and this is income that is coming from those places. Once, if the money cannot be reasonably attributable to your income, or a gift or an inheritance or a loan, then the law says, the constitutional, the supreme law says that will be money or property that has been, will be deemed to have been unlawfully acquired, and therefore will have to be what? Relinquished to the state.
Okay.
The fact is that it is about the quantum of the cash kept in her home. And could you check again, around the period that we are talking about this money, around the period that the theft is being spoken about, that was a time that the dollar was just misbehaving.
Yeah.
From four CDs to 6 CDs to 7 to I think about 12, heading to 15.
Yes.
Was projected it to go to 15, and we're all urged to make sure we stop hoarding. People who are hoarding should stop. So first of all, there are integrity questions. Okay, you don't keep that amount of money in your home. It's not an ordinary amount of money to be kept in your home.
Okay.
So if she has the evidence that the money is a gift from someone, the money is a loan, the money is an inheritance, as we are hearing that her mother, late mother, mother who died recently, was a queen in Asanteman and had access to so much. Just put the facts out there. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
But the charge sheet and the facts accompanying the charge sheet, I cannot see the claim she's making, how they are tenable. They are completely not tenable. But could you, once again, I go back to my initial point. Has the security agencies that have the power to go to that place, conduct searches, and confirm if there's extra money, because from the narration, this was probably not the only amount, or was not, the entire sum. Have they gone there? Have they made seizures of tainted property for the purposes, because it's reasonably suspicious money, for the purposes of the further investigations? She speaks about investigations. The president speaks about investigations. Is it that some work has commenced?
Now, since
we don't have that,
issue,
and we
Samson,
deserve that as the public, who have been paying her, who have been taking care of her since before 2001, when she has been in public office, been in the aviation ministry, been in various ministries up to today. We are entitled to know. If it was a private man's money or property, the discussion would have been a different game. This is a public servant, and the time the money was found to be there is also questionable. As we speak, how much are the IMF giving us that we have been celebrating? How much? How many millions are they giving us?
$600 million.
Yes. So did they go to search? Perhaps this individual alone could have given us that money that is there, and that doesn't belong to her. And people are entitled to make the reasonable deductions they are making. That she has superintended over contracts in excess of $40 million. Okay? Of course, her own political people. The head of the environmental, what's his name? Kokofu. Okay, and
Head
then
of the Environmental Protection
MP,
Agency.
They seem to want to suggest that she is capable of that money in a proper way. Her husband is an architect and is wealthy. Well, they should show. Otherwise, look, this doesn't sit well. It clearly doesn't look good.
Samson, talking about the security authorities, whether they've investigated. So today, what are the avenues available to the state and these security, institutions that you talk about?
So, simply put, since the president didn't make a referral, as he is known to have done in previous situations, if a referral is not made to Shraj, they cannot go into this matter. Members of the public, anybody who is concerned, can make a complaint to Shraj. You can also make a complaint to the OSP. Even though they don't require a complaint, it doesn't mean that you can't make a complaint. A complaint can be made to the OSP, and they will investigate. Of course, we have spoken about Yoko, the FIC, financial intelligence unit, where you, Winston, today, if you got maybe $10,000 into your account, your bank will see it and they will call FIC because they are bound by law to call FIC and tell them that they have seen $10,000 in your account and there's no, it's reasonably suspicious. It will be held and then frozen. Your account will be frozen. You will need now to pay a lawyer to go to court and to say it should be unfrozen, and you must justify why that money duly belongs to you. So people can make complaints. I don't see one to the police. I heard you earlier making an argument about that. I don't see one to the police because for now, it borders on the questions of unexplained wealth.
Yeah.
The OSP has power in that direction. The charge also has power in that direction. They have power to have the asset that she declared also brought in to be opened up and to check what sources of funds are available to her. GRA, I suppose, should be asking questions by now. What are the taxes she has paid over the period? If she has that amount of money, was that declared? Have taxes been paid on them? So various other state institutions duly authorized can go into this matter. And it is in her own interest that this should be done. And she believes that she'll be exonerated.
Right.
So this thing should be done and done quickly. My only concern is that from the way it looks, there ought to have been, there would have been some more money. But at this time, if no attempt has been made to search the property, it would have been concealed. It would have been concealed in a manner that you can no longer trace them.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's my only concern at this time.
Right.
But I wish also, like I stated on Saturday, I believe that the bit of the politics unnecessary that is being brought to it calls on even beyond the politics, calls on the NPP to be issuing statements the way they did for Victoria Hammer, asking that FIC, Yoko, everybody should go and investigate her. They should do the same for her. The presidency to be interested in doing such things and not giving, like some of our audiences have said when we got messages from them, not giving an impression as though the usual proverbial 10% that contractors must give to ministers or officers who give them contracts and from which parties benefit may be the source of this money, and that it is possible that this money is money that perhaps not just directly her own, but for the purposes of use for the benefit of party or for the benefit of the people in government in a certain pool. And we are no novices. These things have happened over the years. I read Obeda Samuel's book on Saturday chronicling how this has been the situation, 10% of contract to people who are giving the contract since Nkrumah's days, NADECO was set up, and all of the periods up to now, politicians keeping cash on them. Obeda Samuel explaining that politicians get visited and they need to use cash, and you cannot expect them to put the cash in the bank all the time. In his case, Obeda Samuel's case, he was found to be keeping about $1 million Ghana cedis then, $1 million cedis then. Some 2 police constables appeared to have stolen the money, and then it became an issue. And then they said, "Oh, this is not public money, so you can't take them on." And the Supreme Court said, "No, a party is a public institution. You get your benefit from the public. It's the public that is supposed to contribute to you. So it can be investigated by the state in the same way as monies taken from the state can be dealt with in the famous case of Yebi Republic versus Yebi and Abalifo. So we have a history. Rawlings is $5 million from Abacha, which he later admitted that it was only $2 million. You think they would have brought that money and put it in the bank?
I remember you going through this chronology on your show. I found it very fascinating. I want to take the last one to Mary Addah. And Mary, this is what we've been asking from the beginning. Could this be just the tip of the iceberg? how many other ministers could be hoarding millions of foreign currency in their homes? What sort of security conditions are these monies being kept under? If even a house help can access it and steal $1 million, before the husband notices it's going on, what does it mean in terms of how much unexplained wealth might be floating around amongst government officials? And most importantly, how can we verify and check and stop it if indeed it is happening?
Okay, so Kojo, I believe something has chronicled some of the evidence that we seek to talk about when politicians themselves have been very clear. The Venerable Okudzeto is one. We also have the Obeda Samuels of our time. And these go to show that it's not just speculation. And when we talk about the fight against corruption being perception, it is not at all. It is a fact that when contracts are signed or executed, there is some amount that goes to certain people. And this then, because they are not, let me say, perceived legal monies, some of these cannot go through our banking system. And for that matter, they are placed in people's custody or they are hidden in other places. And this is not the first instance. We have had over and over again during this our experiment with this current democracy, heard from top places, and in many instances it's come out that people are carrying money from one place to the other, and we do not know the source. That is a very unfortunate instance. And one of the things that has come up strongly is the fact that because we do not have a law that then curtails people from handling such huge money, it becomes difficult to do any proper advocacy on this issue. So our advocacy for me going forward is the fact that we should have, number one, a law, because we know that the Bank of Ghana has law in place for when it comes to the banking system. And no bank in Ghana, let me say, can keep up to $1 million in their vault for any particular day. That is what the law is, and they make sure this is done. So if the Bank of Ghana is able to regulate in this way, then it means that because we are aware, and there have been instances chronicled, in fact, for us all to speak to, then it means it is time we put in place a legislation or we update what we have to also include public officers, particularly those who are politically exposed. So it's not just the Minister of State, but all others who are in a way associated with her. So that when there are instances, we can go after them with some backing. Without backing, it's difficult. It is an open secret that people sign contracts, there is 10%. In fact, at some point, we even hear it's more than 10. So they take these monies. It is a fact that they take them. It is then clear that as we go on, we need to make sure that they are not able to get monies as easily as they do. In other dispensations, you cannot do that. When we are traveling outside, you know what happens. They ask you if you have some money on you. You declare it before you go. If you put some money in the bank in this country and it's above a certain threshold, the issue of suspicious transactions are activated and they report you. Your account is frozen until such a time that you are able to say that for sure this is how I got the money and it was legal. So going forward, we need to get this done. And also there is that element of going forward in this discussion when it comes to if the woman is found culpable, she's not able to explain and there is an instance of going to court, what are we going to charge her for? We have the unexplained wealth provisions not very well spelled out. I believe something can talk to this very well. The legal regime around it, it's not firm. Even though Yoko and the special prosecutor can do that, we all know that if these are not crimes, it becomes difficult to prosecute. Then the investigative bodies will then go out looking for whether it's a bribe it is stealing or what have you. When we do that to ourselves as a people, it is very disturbing. So let's see how going forward we can make our legal regime as robust as possible. I am aware that in this instance, with the asset declaration, it's being worked on, but it is still not up to the standard that is required of best practice. And so we need to, going forward, also look at how we strengthen our asset declaration regime to going backwards anyway in this instance to pick up what we had in the PNDC law that spoke to the fact that if you declare your asset is published as well. Publication then serves as a sunlight propelled into the process so that if you acquire anything that is unexplained, then YOCO and the OSC can activate their mandate to ensure that we deal with these issues. Until such a time, we will talk about this issue, but we will not be able to do as much as we all want to see being done. Because we know for a fact that public officers are engaged in some of these wrongful behaviors.
I think this is where we'll have to draw a curtain on this, but we're so grateful to our our three guests. We started with Prof. Gyampo, and we've also learned a lot from Mary, Addah, and Samson, Lardy, and Anyenini. We appreciate you both. This conversation, clearly, this is only its beginning, so we'll be doing more on this.